KHTS AM 1220, your hometown station. And now, here's the man with the most. Here's your host, Cary Quashen.
Thanks, Mike. You sure have a way of putting that out there. I love it. You know, I was just thinking, you were talking about that we've been here for so long, and thanks KHTS. But also, you know, it's funny because we're going to bring Stephanie Weiss on the phone. And Stephanie Weiss is actually the one that kind of put this all together, like over almost 13 years, or was it? I don't know if it was 13 years or over 13 years ago. But she had an idea, and here we are, 13 years later.
You've been doing this. I mean, you have a place to go every Monday.
I have a place to go every Monday. I have not missed many Mondays.
Hey, you know what I got to say about, and I'm not going to say, you've already said that Stephanie is our guest.
Right.
Stephanie Weiss. Did you know?
I don't know.
That Stephanie, and I don't know, we're going to have to ask her about this, she's going to rappel down a 20-story building.
Stephanie Weiss has always been a little bit crazy, Mike. I'm sorry, Steph. I know you can hear this. You've always been a little bit crazy because there's no way you get me to rappel out of a window of a 20-floor window.
It's coming right up. Tuesday,
not going to happen.
Tuesday, November 10th.
And why is she doing that?
I wonder if her husband knows.
Well, guess what? Hey, Jim, guess what? Your wife's jumping out of a window with a rope.
Now, she has a good reason for doing this. I mean, it's not that she's just taken leave of her senses or anything, although we could dispute that at this moment because that's a pretty serious rappelling.
Yes.
Not something you do, Cary?
I'll tell you what, I won't even look out the window.
Oh.
I mean, I'll look out from a distance, but I'm not going to even put my head out the window and look down. I would get dizzy and nauseous and forget it.
Even if I wanted to, I don't think my wife would be real keen on the idea.
Your wife wouldn't allow it, huh?
I'm thinking she would probably say that's not a great idea, Mike.
Mine would probably say, go for it. Quick. Go. Jump.
Uh-oh.
No, just play it.
You know, what we're going to be looking at today, addiction advocacy and education, and I've been looking over some of the numbers here, and it is just absolutely frightening, to be realistic.
You know, it's crazy, and we just did an interview because in Columbus and all over the place, everybody's panicking, and they're saying, how did they get to this now? They just did a whole special on 60 Minutes or something like that. Everybody's freaking out. I've been screaming this for years. This is gonna, and you know that.
You have.
Stephanie
absolutely
knows it,
yeah.
And I've been screaming for years. It's gonna be worse than the 70s.
Imagine this, if you can. More than 22 million Americans.
Say that again. 22 million.
Million with an M. Americans are addicted to alcohol or other drugs, and this goes right along with it. More than 100 million family members share the pain. So we have in this country, in the United States of America alone, we have over 122 million Americans affected by drugs and alcohol.
I don't know anybody in this world, in my world, that doesn't know somebody in trouble with alcohol or drugs.
Well, listen to this.
I don't know anybody.
Listen to this, and our listeners should think about this during the show. Alcohol and other drugs claim another life every 4 minutes in America. Now, I did the math. That's 15 people in America that will die while we're doing this show, Cary. 15. How do you get your mind around that insanity?
That's more than car crashes. I mean, it's just crazy, isn't it? But I've been screaming this, Mike. I've been screaming this. In fact, we just did an interview a minute ago with Melissa over here at KHTS. It's got the attention of everybody. Every time I turn any kind of media, and I'm seeing something about this now.
Yeah.
So people ask all the time, how did this happen? How are we in this trouble? I mean, I got the answers. I know how. It really is pretty simple.
Are you going to share it with us?
I don't. You know what? I don't really want to share it right now. I would rather bring Stephanie on.
Okay.
And get them things on, and all of us share it together. So is Stephanie is she with us? So Stephanie's calling from Texas. So let's bring her in. Steph, are you here?
I am here. How are you guys?
We're good.
Hey, do they have a big trampoline down at the bottom of that 20-story building?
No, they don't.
Wow.
They do not. Okay, so first of all, here's the deal. I am going to go over down a 20-story building with 50 or 60 other people tomorrow in Texas.
Let me tell you the deal. You're crazy.
You know what, guys? It's for a good cause. And the cause is that there are a number of national organizations around the United States who are talking about addiction and the ways we solve the problem. And part of the way we solve the problem of addiction is to talk on a local level, on a regional level, on a state level, and a national level. And we talk about addiction advocacy and education so that we don't assume that addiction is a disease of moral turpitude. We wrap, Cary, you're always saying that we wrap a pink ribbon of hope around cancer and other kinds of diseases, but yet when it comes to addiction, it's their fault. Golly gee, if they only lived a better life. Golly gee, if their parents took better care of them, they wouldn't be an addict. There are so many things that we attribute to the disease of addiction, and the conversation has to start now, because one voice is a mere whisper. A chorus of voices change the world. And you have been part of that change of the world, Cary, for over 36 years now, and you've advocated it not only locally in Santa Clarita, but locally in Simi Valley, in Pasadena, Bakersfield, but across the United States, which becomes regional, that we have to have the conversation to change the picture. It changes addiction research and funding. It changes policies. It changes programs. And what it means is that we continue to save lives, which is what you in Action does on a daily basis.
Continue to save lives. Well, let's get it straight. When we're done with this show, 15 people would have lost their lives from some kind of drug abuse. 22 million people in this country are addicted to either alcohol or drugs. It's affecting over 100 million people emotionally, what's going on here. You think we may need to pay attention to this now? You think it's got everyone's attention finally?
I don't know that it does have everybody's attention, and that's why people who are in recovery tell their stories. We specifically focus in on Alcohol Awareness Month in April, and we specifically focus in on Recovery Month in September to tell the story again and again and again, to talk about those numbers, because those numbers do not have to happen.
They sure don't.
They just don't.
So, Stephanie.
So what I'm doing tomorrow is on behalf of a national organization named Shatterproof, which was created by a gentleman who wanted to change the world just like you did, Cary, and you still do, because his son died of an overdose from a heroin overdose, okay? So they have hit communities all around the United States and done fundraising through rappelling. And guess what, Cary? I'm not the first of your Action folks to ever rappel.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
Angel was.
I remember. That's
and
right.
It was Angel who's given me the guts and the fortitude to carry this out, because...
So you're gonna look out this window, and you're gonna step out.
I'm going to step off backwards, and I'm going to rappel 20 floors down to the ground. May not be fast.
I hope it's not fast. I hope it's real slow, Stephanie.
But I'm doing it because I have raised $2,500 for Shatterproof to be a part of this venture, simply because the conversation is important. So
why is it so important, Stephanie?
Because it changes families' view of the addicts and loved ones in their lives. It changes governmental aspects of how they start looking at what's going on in the United States and other parts of the world. And because we have to continually give the message. And when we give the message that people are able to recover, and lead positive lives, then that allows somebody to kick up the game, if you will, and say, we'll fund this program, we'll help over here, we won't decrease insurance for treatment. We will provide this because we know that addiction is a treatable disease and people can recover.
And I'll tell you, you mentioned insurance, and I can't really talk bad about insurance because I deal with them all the time, but that's where we need to really look at too eventually, because they don't want to pay for treatment. Nope. We got this is insane. We have 43,000 people dying every year, 15 every hour. And we try to get somebody dazed because they're shooting heroin or they're strung out on Vicodin or Oxy, and the insurance companies want them to try outpatient first. And it's like really getting crazy. So eventually we need to pay attention to that too, but everybody's afraid to tackle that. So eventually that's going to be where I'm going to go. I need to tackle that on a national level. I really do, because there's so many people that are trying to get treatment or getting treatment, and they get very little treatment because of that, and they end up dead. So somebody's got to pay attention from the government when it comes to that. They wrote regulations for the insurance companies to follow. They're not following them. So it's really something that is really close to my heart, and I'm going to pay serious attention to that soon.
And we have to, Cary, but we also have to break the stigma of addiction. We have to talk about what that stigma does to people, and the bottom line is stigma against addiction is really, we need to end it, because it's really a compassion that we want to begin. We want to be compassionate, and we want to be passionate about powerful addiction treatment. And addiction is just not about you or I or the one who was addicted or my son who is in and out of recovery for 15 years. It's about families getting healthy, right, and approaching the whole process of addiction and understanding this very baffling and cunning disease. That's part of what it is.
Who's an addict? When people think of a drug addict, what do they think? They think that's the guy living under the bridge, or the one who burgled the store, or the one who is so out of control that they just have no desire to live life and are content to be homeless. Not the 15-year-old girl that I'm putting in one of my drug rehabs tonight that is strung out on pills and crystal meth. You would never in a million years think that this girl was an addict. Or the 42-year-old nurse that's coming into my rehab tomorrow at noon. You would never know. Or the real estate broker that's there now, or the cop that's in one of my rehabs, or two cops that's in one of my rehabs today. You would never know. Who's an alcoholic?
Same thing.
When you think alcohol, what do you think? When you think alcoholic, what comes to your mind? For real, what comes?
It's not as bad as it used to be. You used to literally think of a derelict.
Yeah, you would think of somebody on Skid Row.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, when I first went to a meeting 35 years ago, by the way, staff, it's 34 years, not 36, but thank you for the extra years. But when I first had to go to a meeting and I heard Alcoholics Anonymous, I figured hobos.
Yeah.
People on the streets. And I'll tell you what, we don't, most of the people that live on the streets, they're sad, and some are alcoholics, but most of them, even if they have alcohol, they have some other issues too. The people we treat for alcoholism are professional people. The people that go to work every day. They're wives and husbands and mothers and fathers and kids. So we have to rethink what we think about when we think alcoholics or addicts, don't we?
And that's what's so important about people in recovery telling their stories, who they were, how they got started, how they got trapped, why they decided to continue, why they decided to quit, and the fact that they have gone on and have professional
I'll tell you what,
life.
Why they continue to do it is pretty simple. Once you're addicted to a drug or an alcohol, physically, you can't stop.
Right.
unless you get medical attention. Here's a scary number for you. 20% of all alcoholics that are addicted to alcohol, if you put them in a room and say you're all going to detox with no medication, 20% will die. They'll never leave the room. Why do people continue to drink? It's pretty simple, because they have to. Physically and emotional. And by the way, the physical part of alcoholism and addiction is the easy part to treat. We have great medications these days that you don't even feel it. You come off it with very little discomfort. It's the emotional addiction that is extremely hard to treat, especially today with the drugs that are out there.
Stephanie, it's interesting what you were just saying about how people have to tell their stories, how they got into it and how it affected their lives and how they got out. Because stop and think about it, that's literally how AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, got started. That's what the big book is. It's a whole bunch of stories that tell exactly that.
Yeah. Well, if you walk into a room and you're an alcoholic or an addict, to me it's the same thing. You suffer from a disease that kind of keeps you helpless and hopeless and lost. But you walk in a room and you hear people that says, I have a week sober. And you go, whoa. That's a long time. How did they do that? Then you hear somebody else say, I have a day sober, and you can relate to that when you're new. And then somebody say, I have 20 years, so it's kind of like it's all over the place. There's hope.
And what you just said is, again, exactly how the AA model got started.
That's
because
exactly
Dr.
right.
Bob and his friend went to a ward in a hospital where they said they had a patient who was punching the nurses in the face, and he was carrying on, and they went to him and said, we want to help you get sober. And he said, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And they said, can you do it for one day? And he said, well, yeah, I can do it for one day. And they said, that's all we're asking. And he was the first person to join the program.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know what? And it's kind of sad for me still, Cary, and you know that when there were open AA meetings or NA meetings, we'd have action kids who had parents who refused to take them.
Yeah.
So I would.
Yes.
And I'd go to those open meetings, and it was all of the individuals in that room who were there to share what they've been given had literally gave me hope on an ongoing basis, not only for the kids that we've worked with for action, but my own son and others I know. And there was a time, Cary, that once upon a time you said to me, okay, Weiss, unless you start going to some meetings on the other side and get healthy as a family, you can't help here anymore until you go. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Kind of. We had so many talks, but yeah, kind of.
Hey,
so
Stephanie.
Families get together and teams go to Alateen and family members can go to Al-Anon.
So many people don't want their kids to go to the treatment centers or meetings because they don't want, hey, my kid's not really an alcoholic or an addict. Hey, you know what? Half the people or more of people that lose their lives, were they really alcoholics or addicts? Probably not. But they fooled around with alcohol and drugs, and it took their life. So I'd much rather have a kid or somebody go to a meeting and say, I'm an alcoholic, and stay sober, than to drink and die. So we really need to look at our priorities and figure out what our motives are. And I'll tell you another thing. When I'm dealing with somebody that needs to go into treatment, if they're underage and their families are so against it, there's usually a hidden secret.
Hey, Stephanie, we're going to be taking a break here shortly, but I just wanted to say one thing. From Cary and I both, we were having some fun about the fact that you're going to be rappelling down this 20-story building, but we're both proud of you, and our hats off to you for taking a stand.
I've been proud of Stephanie Weiss for how many years have I known you?
Oh, 15 now.
I've been proud of her at least for 14 of them. No, for all 15. She's a lady that speaks her mind and gets things done, and that's for sure. On that note, Mike, let's go ahead and take a break. This is Families in Action on our hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.